Hey, what's going on everyone? In this video I'm doing a review of the Sony BDP S5100 Blu-ray 3D media player. Now in case you want to see an unboxing of the device, I have done it in a separate video. You can find a link to that video in the video description. So let's start off with the remote design. The remote itself isn't too big, it's a fairly good size and easy to hold. Now it isn't the most comfortable remote I've ever used, and that's basically because the back is just pure plastic. Not to say it's terrible, but it's not the most comfortable remote I've ever used. It's pretty well done. The buttons are easy to reach. You have a dedicated Netflix button and a Sony Entertainment Network button. I'll show you what this Sony Entertainment Network button does in a little bit. But the remote itself is fairly well made. As with most other Sony devices, this one looks extremely elegant in terms of its physical design. It's very attractive. In fact, this is the best looking media player device I have ever used, and if you check out my YouTube channel, you'll know that I've actually gone through quite a few. On the top of the device, we have an eject button, play, stop, and power on-off button. On the right side, there are no ports whatsoever. Now when it comes to the back of the device, it's kind of odd situation happening here. You'll notice you have the power cord, you have a port for audio, coaxial, digital output, HDMI output, a LAN 100, which is your Ethernet port for internet, and a USB port. However, on the rest of the device at the back, you'll notice there's actually no more ports available, which is really bad considering that there's no optical audio output, nor is there any support for analog wiring. So if your TV does not have HDMI, you should definitely avoid this media player. And on the left side of the device, there are no ports. On the front, you have the Blu-ray tray, which also plays DVDs and CDs. There's also an LED display on the front of the device, which basically tells you the status of what the device is currently doing. And of course the primary USB port on the front. While on, it consumes 14 watts of power, and while off it consumes 0.15 watts. For those of you that are curious as to which file types are supported with the USB playback, I'll put a full list taken from Sony's website in the video description. Let me just comment and say that this is probably the most powerful and best media player I've ever used, because it's yet to fail me in terms of playing back any type of USB file type. There is of course a wireless card built inside, so you can actually have Wi-Fi access, but please don't ask how the strength is because it varies depending on your router strength, how many walls are in between your device and the router. Furthermore, Sony claims this has super Wi-Fi, but to be honest, it's nothing special, it's just a marketing gimmick, and I can confirm that it only supports 2.4 GHz signal. In terms of audio, it does support Dolby True HD and DTS HD codecs, and of course if you have a stereo system that has 7.1 channels, you're also set because it supports it. Okay, so at this point in the video, we're going to move over to the software side of things. This is just a general user interface, which is basically called Cross Media Bar, which is very similar to, say, the PlayStation 3, for example. And looking over this setup menu, you have plenty of options to go through. You can customize your settings through network, system updates, your general system settings, music settings. There's a lot to go through, so I'm not going to go through them right now because it's pretty boring. Shifting over, you have your photo options. Here, for example, you have my PC. Here's my router. I have a USB port in my router. I can plug in a USB stick and, with media content stream it from my router, so it's able to access all DLNA devices connected in your home network. Now these devices you're seeing here, unknown USB devices, actually one is a mouse and one is a keyboard. While on this menu it won't recognize the devices, but on the web browser it works just fine. Of course, shifting over to music, you have a whole bunch of stuff. Most popular is Slacker and Pandora. I'm not going to show you all the apps on this device because the amount available is just ridiculous. Moving over to video, which is the most important part. You have some exclusive Sony features, and the most popular and most important ones are probably Netflix, Hulu, and of course there's a YouTube app available. Now these apps will differ depending on which region you live in. You'll get different apps available to you. For example, also have Flickster, which is like a movie app, and of course because this is a 3D Blu-ray media player, you do have an exclusive 3D app created by Sony, which basically has movie trailers and some movie clips that are designed for 3D experience. Of course, you must have a 3D TV in order to utilize these to their full potential and watch these clips. Moving down the list, as you can see, I can just keep scrolling. It's just too many to slow down the list for you guys, but the amount of apps available is just ridiculous. Moving over to network, you have the Opera TV Store, which is basically an online app central access. It doesn't allow you to download apps to the media player itself. Rather, it allows you to connect to the Opera Store and see what apps you favorited and stuff like that. However, as many apps as there are to access here, the experience is very laggy. Right now I'm connected via an Ethernet wire, so I'm getting a very solid connection, but as you can see, this is how long it took to start up. So it's not exactly the greatest experience. Of course, you have a Facebook app and an internet browser. Now the internet browser itself isn't that great. It is what it is. Honestly, if you're looking for web browsing experience, you're better off using a computer or tablet. But the fact that it's here is still a nice addition. As I said, I plugged in a keyboard and I can just type out something like Google, or, well, there's my spelling mistake. Now, I currently have a mouse hooked up, as I said, and as you can see, I'm scrolling all over the place on my mouse pad, but the mouse is reacting very, very poorly. So the fact that there is a web browser built in here, it's actually a pretty bad experience for the most part. Now, shifting over even further, you have the Sony Entertainment Network. This is basically exclusive content available through Sony. So if you go through the videos, for example, what you basically have here is access to digital content. You can rent movies in standard definition or high definition. Of course, depending on which quality you select, the price will differ. And of course, you have recommendations. The one thing I'm disappointed about this is that due to the amount of apps available, which is great, it's just in a very standard listing in each section. I wish there was a favorite section in which I could filter, say, Netflix, Hulu, and YouTube just immediately. But in order to access, say, YouTube, I have to go down this extensive list, which isn't even in alphabetical order, which makes things even worse. So when it comes to general picture quality playback of videos or just, well, pictures in general, the quality is absolutely fantastic. Of course, this also depends on what type of TV you're running, if it can output, that great of a quality. And in terms of the Netflix app, which is obviously very popular, it's very generic in terms of your control compared to other media players. You can fast forward, pause, etc. And of course, you have your very generic menus that are available to you in almost any other media player that Netflix is present on. When it comes to starting up the Netflix app, I'm on a wired connection. It takes about 15 seconds, which isn't bad, considering some other devices out there are a lot slower at starting up the Netflix app. Now, when it comes to the Hulu Plus app, it takes about 20 seconds roughly to start up, and the interface is, well, pretty generic. You can access your subscriptions, your, stuff that you subscribe to. You can check out clips, episodes, and as you would expect, once the Hulu Plus video clip is playing, it presents great quality. Although the annoying thing is pressing display doesn't show up the time bar. You would have to actually press some sort of button like next or play and pause to display the display bar at the bottom, as you can see now, which is kind of annoying, but not a big deal. Now, as for the YouTube experience, we're stuck with using the YouTube Leanback app, which is basically Google's solution to using YouTube on TVs, which I'm not really a fan of because it's kind of clunky and laggy. And it does use HD content, it does stream HD content, but it seems to take a long time for it to stream from low quality to high quality. But you know what, it's there. All the functions that you would require are here. You can have search, you can search up trending, gaming videos, and all the other good stuff. So it's not the greatest YouTube experience, but it's there, on all the requirements we would need are working just fine. When it comes to USB media playback, the thing works fantastic. In fact, if you press the options button, you also have a button here. It says 3D menu. Selecting it will turn on an option, say, for simulated 3D, which will basically allow you to turn 2D content, as I have now, into 3D. As you can see, you have the option of setting it to low, medium, high depth. It works pretty decently for the most part, but that also depends on which type of 3D TV you're running. Obviously, you must have a 3D TV in order to make this work. Be warned though that the higher you set the depth of the 3D, the more straining it might be on your eyes. So you'll have to play with it and see what works well for your eyes. And when it comes to navigating through pictures, you of course can use the buttons on the remote to navigate left and right, faster or slower if you want. And of course you can adjust the slideshow options. And of course there is a 3D menu yet again. Now, from personal experience, I find that watching pictures in 3D is very, very straining on the eyes. Movies is a lot easier. But again, the option's there and available if you want. In case you have real pictures in 3D, which is MPO file format, this media player also does play MPO file format. Now, when it comes to external hard drive support, I have plugged in a 4TB hard drive and it wasn't a great experience. Now, this could be possible due to the fact there's a ton of media on that external hard drive that I had, so the media player just couldn't read it properly. However, my 1.5TB external hard drive ran just fine when I plugged it in. When it comes to network media playback on this Blu-ray media player, the Blu-ray media player actually officially supports DLNA playback, so you can play a whole bunch of pictures, videos, music on this Blu-ray media player over your network. Now what you're seeing is this picture being streamed from my phone wirelessly, of course, and it works just fine, and sometimes for video content it works as well, depending on the quality, of course. Now the strange thing here that I wanted to mention is that when it comes to network playback, if I have, say, a USB stick plugged into my router with an MKV file, it'll work just fine. It'll play it back just fine and everything works great. But when it comes to an MKV file being shared on my PC, it will not play it back. What basically happens is that the media player will connect to my computer and access Windows Media Center. However, Windows Media Center on my PC does not allow for MKV file sharing. This is a problem that Windows has always had. Okay, it's time to break down this review into its final verdict, and I would give this media player a 8 out of a 10, and here's why. The pros of the device is that it has a very attractive design. The interface itself is easy to navigate, whether you're looking for pictures or videos or music or, internet content. It's very easy to navigate around. The interface itself is not only easy to navigate, but it's also very, very fast and very responsive, which is always a bonus. The media player itself plays most HD videos and popular media content in general. I've yet to find a single file this media player will not play. It's that good. It does of course have DLNA support, as I showed you. Some of the most popular streaming content services are available, for example Netflix, Hulu, and YouTube. There's also the Sony TV Side View app, which is available for iPhone and Android, in which you can use your phone as a remote control for the Blu-ray media player. There's of course simulated 3D. You can turn your own 2D videos into 3D videos. There's of course a built-in web browser. Now it's not the greatest, but considering that many media players don't have a browser built in, it's nice to have one available just in case you ever choose to use it. The Opera Store, as I mentioned, has online access to additional apps, and believe me, there's a ton to access. And of course, the media player itself has plenty of other apps available within this device, and Sony is constantly sending updates to this device for new apps. However, there are a few cons that might put off some people completely depending on how old your TV and your home theater devices are. For example, there's no analog or optical audio output at all on this device. The apps listing, well, there's too many. You might think that's a good thing, but there's actually no way to select your favorites. And of course, there's poor network playback when it comes to PC media playback, because it must be done through Windows Media Center, and it cannot be done with simple file folder sharing. And in many people's eyes, those cons will seem very big, but in my honest opinion, the pros are so strong that they vastly outweigh the cons. In my opinion, this is probably the best media player I've used up to date. Hopefully Sony will release an update to fix the network playback of PC content, but up until then, I'm very satisfied with this media player and I'm really happy, and I highly recommend it to anyone else. So that's my review. If you guys found this video useful, be sure to check out my Facebook, Google+, Twitter links in the video description. Hit the like button if this helped, subscribe, and thanks for watching. Hey, what's going on everyone? In this video I'm doing a review of the Sony BDP S5100 Blu-ray 3D media player. Now in case you want to see an unboxing of the device, I have done it in a separate video. You can find a link to that video in the video description. So let's start off with the remote design. The remote itself isn't too big, it's a fairly good size and easy to hold. Now it isn't the most comfortable remote I've ever used, and that's basically because the back is just pure plastic. Not to say it's terrible, but it's not the most comfortable remote I've ever used. It's pretty well done. The buttons are easy to reach. You have a dedicated Netflix button and a Sony Entertainment Network button. I'll show you what this Sony Entertainment Network button does in a little bit. But the remote itself is fairly well made. As with most other Sony devices, this one looks extremely elegant in terms of its physical design. It's very attractive. In fact, this is the best looking media player device I have ever used, and if you check out my YouTube channel, you'll know that I've actually gone through quite a few. On the top of the device, we have an eject button, play, stop, and power on-off button. On the right side, there are no ports whatsoever. Now when it comes to the back of the device, it's kind of odd situation happening here. You'll notice you have the power cord, you have a port for audio, coaxial, digital output, HDMI output, a LAN 100, which is your Ethernet port for internet,